The alarm sounded across the deep space station at exactly 3 in the morning. Commander Alex Carter woke up immediately, his military training taking over before his mind fully processed what was happening. He threw on his uniform and ran down the corridor toward the command center. Other crew members were doing the same, their faces showing confusion and concern. When Carter reached the command center, he found his team already gathered around the main display screen. The room glowed with blue light from dozens of monitors showing data streams and sensor readings. His second officer, Lieutenant Kate Phillips, turned to face him. Her expression made his stomach tighten with worry. "Commander, you need to see this," she said, pointing at the screen. "We picked up a signal 30 minutes ago. At first, we thought it was a glitch in our system, but it kept repeating. The computer finally identified it." Carter looked at the screen. His breath caught in his throat. The identification code displayed there was impossible. It belonged to a ship that no longer existed, a ship that had vanished without any trace 15 years ago. "The ESS Wanderer." "That cannot be right," Carter said quietly. "Run the check again. Verify everything." "We already did, sir," Phillips replied. 3 times. "The signal is real. The Wanderer is back." Carter stared at the screen, his mind racing through memories he had tried to bury for years. He had known people on that ship. Good people. Captain Jake Sullivan had been his friend, someone he trusted with his life. When the Wanderer disappeared in the void sector, search teams looked for months. They found nothing. No wreckage, no emergency beacons, no bodies. The ship had simply ceased to exist, as if it had been erased from reality itself. "Where is it now?" Carter asked. "At the edge of our sensor range," Phillips said, "moving toward us at standard cruising speed. They will reach us in about 6 hours. Have they responded to our communications?" "No, sir. They are just broadcasting their identification code on repeat. Nothing else." Carter walked closer to the screen and studied the sensor data. Something was wrong. The energy readings from the Wanderer were completely different from what they should be. The ship was putting out 10 times more power than it should be capable of generating, and the radiation signature was unlike anything in their database. "Get me Dr. Lisa Morgan," Carter ordered. "I want her to look at these readings right away." 20 minutes later, Dr. Morgan arrived in the command center. She was the station's chief scientist, an expert in quantum physics and spatial anomalies. She had been studying the void sector for years, trying to understand what happened to ships that entered that region of space. Now perhaps she would finally get some answers. Morgan studied the sensor data in silence for several minutes. Carter watched her face carefully. He saw her eyes widen, then narrow in concentration. She ran her fingers over the display, pulling up different data sets and comparing them. Finally, she stepped back and looked at Carter. "This is impossible," she said softly. "Explain," Carter said. "The energy readings show the ship is powered by something we have never seen before. The radiation pattern does not match any known power source. Nuclear fusion, antimatter, zero-point energy, none of them produce this signature. And the power output is extraordinary. That ship could probably destroy our entire station with a single weapon discharge." "Could it be hostile?" Phillips asked. "I do not know," Morgan said, "but I recommend extreme caution. Whatever happened to that ship out there, it changed fundamentally." Carter made his decision. "Raise our defense shields. Power up all weapon systems. I want a full security team ready to board that ship when it arrives. And keep trying to make contact. I want to talk to whoever is flying that vessel." The next 6 hours passed slowly. The crew of Sentinel-7 prepared for every possibility. The security team ran through boarding procedures. Medical staff prepared for potential injuries or contamination. Engineering checked and rechecked all systems. Everyone was tense, waiting to see what would happen when the Wanderer finally arrived. Carter spent most of that time in his office, reviewing old mission files from the Wanderer. He looked at crew photos, read service records, and remembered the people he had known. Jake Sullivan smiled at him from one photograph, confident and capable. Carter wondered if his friend was still alive on that ship, and if so, what he had become. Finally, the Wanderer arrived. It dropped out of faster-than-light travel precisely where the computer predicted, its engines cutting off as it drifted toward the station. Carter stood in the command center, surrounded by his crew, and watched the ship approach on the main screen. The Wanderer looked exactly as it had 15 years ago. No damage, no modifications to the exterior hull, no signs of wear or battle. It appeared as if the ship had left dock yesterday, rather than vanishing over a decade ago. But the sensors told a different story. That ship was wrong in ways Carter could not fully understand. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Carter ordered. The screen changed, showing the bridge of the Wanderer. Captain Jake Sullivan sat in the command chair, wearing the same uniform Carter remembered. He looked exactly the same. Not older, not different, exactly the same. Behind him, other crew members moved about their duties, all of them appearing completely normal. "Sentinel 7, this is Captain Sullivan of the ESS Wanderer requesting permission to dock," Sullivan said calmly, as if he had been gone for a week rather than 15 years. Carter stepped forward, his voice careful and controlled. "Jake, this is Alex Carter. Where have you been?" Sullivan smiled slightly. "That is a long story, Alex. One I would prefer to tell in person. We have brought something back with us, something that will change everything for humanity. But I need to speak with Coalition leadership before I can explain fully." "Your ship is showing unusual energy readings," Carter said. "We need to understand what we are dealing with before we allow you to dock." "I understand your concern," Sullivan replied. "We are not a threat. But yes, our ship has been modified. Enhanced, actually. You will see soon enough." "May we dock?" Carter looked at Morgan. She shook her head slightly, her expression worried. But Carter knew they had to let the ship dock. They needed answers, and the only way to get them was to allow the Wanderer aboard. "Permission granted," Carter said. "Dock at Bay 7. My security team will meet you there." "Understood," Sullivan said. "We will see you soon, old friend." The transmission ended. Carter turned to Phillips. "Take your team to the docking bay. Full combat gear. If anything seems wrong, any sign of danger, you seal that bay and prevent anyone from leaving." "Understood?" "Yes, sir," Phillips said. She left immediately, gathering her security team as she went. The Wanderer docked smoothly, its airlock connecting with the station without any problems. Carter watched through security cameras as Phillips and her team entered the docking bay, weapons ready. The airlock opened and Captain Sullivan stepped through, followed by 6 of his crew members. They all looked normal. Healthy, calm, showing no signs of stress or trauma. Sullivan walked up to Phillips and smiled warmly. "Lieutenant Phillips, good to see you. Sorry for the dramatic return. We have had quite an adventure. Captain Sullivan, I need to ask you and your crew to submit to medical screening before you can enter the main station," Phillips said formally. "Of course," Sullivan agreed easily. "But first, would you like to see what we brought back? It is in our cargo bay. I think it will answer many of your questions." Phillips hesitated, then nodded. "Show me." Sullivan led the security team back through the airlock and onto the Wanderer. Carter watched through the camera feeds built into their helmets. The ship's interior looked normal at first. Clean corridors, functioning lights, everything working properly. But as they walked deeper into the ship, Carter noticed something strange. The crew members they passed all had the same expression. A kind of peaceful certainty, almost like religious devotion. They reached the cargo bay. Sullivan opened the door and stepped inside. "Behold," he said simply. The camera feed from Phillips's helmet showed something that made no sense. In the center of the cargo bay sat an object that seemed to hurt the eyes to look at directly. It was geometric but also somehow fluid, shifting between shapes that should not exist. Corners folded into themselves. Surfaces reflected light that came from nowhere. The object appeared solid but also transparent, existing in multiple states at once. "What is that?" Phillips asked, her voice tight with tension. "We call it the Threshold Engine," Sullivan said, his voice filled with wonder. "It is a gift from beings far beyond our understanding. Beings who exist outside normal space and time. They are called the Architects, and they have been watching humanity for thousands of years. They decided we are ready to join them, to transcend our limited existence and become something greater." Carter felt ice run down his spine as he listened. In the command center, Morgan was frantically analyzing the sensor data from the cargo bay. Her instruments were going crazy, detecting quantum fluctuations, temporal distortions, and energy patterns that violated the laws of physics. "This device can fold space in ways that make our fastest ships look like ancient sailing vessels," Sullivan continued. "With this, humanity can explore the entire galaxy in days. We can access resources beyond." Dr. Lisa Morgan had not slept in 2 days. Her laboratory was filled with displays showing data that made no sense according to everything she knew about physics. The Threshold Engine defied explanation. Every test she ran came back with impossible results. The device seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, its quantum signature extending across vast distances, possibly reaching into other galaxies or even other universes. She rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the latest scan results. The device was connected to something. The quantum entanglement patterns showed clear links extending beyond the range of any human sensor. Whatever the architects were, they maintained some kind of connection to this machine. Morgan suspected they could see through it, maybe even control it from wherever they existed. A knock on her door made her jump. Commander Carter entered, looking as exhausted as she felt. He had been dealing with Coalition Command for hours, trying to explain a situation that seemed impossible to people who were not here to witness it. "How bad is it?" Carter asked, closing the door behind him. "Worse than I initially thought," Morgan replied. She pulled up a holographic display showing the device's energy patterns. "This thing is not just a machine. It is more like a living organism. It learns, adapts, and responds to its environment, and it is getting stronger. Every hour it stays on our station, its field expands a little bit more." "How long before it affects the entire station?" Carter asked. "At current growth rate, maybe 3 days. Maybe less if it decides to accelerate." Morgan paused, then added quietly, "Alex, this device is not meant to help humanity. It is meant to change us, to remake us into something that serves the architects." Carter nodded slowly. He had come to the same conclusion. "What did Coalition Command say?" "They want us to keep studying it. They think it might be valuable, that we can learn to control it and use it for our own purposes." Morgan's voice was bitter. "They do not understand what we are dealing with. This is not some alien artifact we can reverse engineer. This is a trap disguised as a gift." Before Carter could respond, an alarm sounded. His communicator buzzed urgently. He answered it immediately. "Carter here." "Commander, we have a situation in Sector 12, came Phillips's voice. She sounded tense. "Several crew members are heading toward the docking bay. They are not responding to orders." "I am on my way," Carter said. He looked at Morgan. "It has already started." They ran through the corridors together. When they reached Sector 12, they found Phillips and her security team trying to block a group of about 20 crew members. The affected people walked slowly forward, their faces showing that same peaceful expression Carter had seen on Sullivan's crew. They were not aggressive or violent. They simply moved forward with calm determination, as if nothing could stop them from reaching their destination. "Stand down," Phillips ordered, her weapon raised but not aimed directly at anyone. "That is an order." The converted crew members did not respond. They just kept walking. One of them, a young engineer named Danny Price, spoke in a voice that sounded dreamy and distant. "You do not understand. The architects offer us everything. No more pain. No more fear. No more death. We will become part of something infinite and beautiful. Why would we refuse?" "Because it is not real," Carter said, stepping forward. "Danny, listen to me. What you are feeling is not your own thoughts. That device is controlling you." Danny smiled serenely. "You are afraid of change, Commander. You cling to your limited existence because you cannot imagine anything greater. But we have been shown the truth. We know what awaits us, and soon you will know too. Everyone will." The converted crew continued forward. Phillips looked at Carter, silently asking for orders. Carter knew they could not use force against their own people. These were not enemies. They were victims. "Fall back," Carter ordered. "Let them go. Seal the sections behind them." The security team retreated, activating emergency bulkheads to seal off the corridor. The converted crew members walked past them without a glance, heading toward the docking bay where the Wanderer and its cargo waited. Carter watched them go, feeling helpless and angry. 20 people gone in an instant, their minds rewritten by something humanity barely understood. Over the next few hours, more crew members fell under the device's influence. The number grew steadily. 30 people, 50, 70. Nearly 40% of the station's population was now converted, all of them gathering in the sections closest to the docking bay, as if drawn by an invisible force. Carter called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. Morgan was there along with Phillips and Chief Engineer Ben Howard. Howard was an older man, a veteran who had served in deep space for over 20 years. He had known Captain Sullivan well before the Wanderer disappeared. Now he sat at the table, his face grave and worried. "We need to destroy that device," Morgan said bluntly. "It is the only way to stop this." "Coalition Command has not authorized that action," Carter replied. "They still want us to contain it and study it." Then Coalition Command is making a mistake, Morgan said firmly. If we do not act soon, everyone on this station will be converted, and then it will spread.
To other stations.
To colonies. To Earth itself. This is an extinction-level threat. I need proof, Carter said. Something concrete I can show Command to make them understand the danger. Philip spoke up. I have been going through the Wanderers' data logs, the ones we recovered from their system before they shut us out. There are encrypted files from right before the ship disappeared. I managed to break the encryption an hour ago. She activated a display screen. Text files appeared showing log entries from 15 years ago. These are Captain Sullivan's personal logs, private entries he never meant anyone to see. Carter leaned forward, reading the entries. His face grew pale as he absorbed the information. The logs told a very different story from what Sullivan had claimed. The Wanderer had not been contacted by benevolent architects. Instead, they had discovered a derelict alien station drifting in the void sector. Against protocol, Sullivan had ordered an away team to investigate. They found the device inside that station. Ancient, abandoned, waiting. Sullivan's logs described how they brought it aboard for study. Within hours, crew members began experiencing shared visions. They saw images of vast beings existing across multiple dimensions, beings that promised transcendence and immortality. At first, Sullivan thought it was a form of communication, but then the crew started changing. Their personalities began to merge. They stopped acting as individuals and started functioning as a collective. Sullivan realized too late what was happening. The device was not trying to communicate. It was reprogramming them, rewriting their neural patterns to match some template created by its builders. The final log entry was desperate and terrified. Sullivan wrote it in a brief moment of clarity before the conversion completed. His words were a warning, a plea for anyone who found the ship to destroy the device before it could spread. Then the log cut off abruptly. Carter sat back, his mind reeling. Jake tried to warn us. His last act as himself was to leave this message. We need to show this to Coalition Command, Morgan said. It might not be enough, Howard said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Command wants the technology. They see the potential for power, for military applications. They will not want to destroy it based on a 15-year-old log entry. Then what do we do? Phillips asked. Howard was silent for a moment, then he made his decision. There is something I have not told you. Before the Wanderer disappeared, Jake and I were working on a classified project. A theoretical weapon designed to defend against unknown alien threats. We called it a quantum disruptor. It was designed to create localized reality failures, essentially tearing holes in space-time. Why was I not informed about this? Carter demanded. Because the project was shut down, Howard explained. The theory predicted the weapon could cause unpredictable damage to the fabric of reality itself. Command decided it was too dangerous. But Jake and I continued working on it in secret. We built a prototype, just in case. And this weapon could destroy the threshold engine? Morgan asked. Possibly, Howard said. The device exists partially outside normal space. Conventional weapons would not work on it. But a quantum disruptor might be able to sever its connection to whatever is controlling it. It would essentially cut the device off from its dimensional moorings. What are the risks? Carter asked. Howard met his eyes. The weapon has never been tested. It could work exactly as designed. Or it could tear a permanent rift in space-time. We could destroy the device and the station along with it. We could create a black hole. Or we could open a gateway to whatever dimension the architects exist in. The room was silent. Carter looked at each person present. Morgan showed determination. Philip showed fear but also resolve. Howard showed grim acceptance. They all knew what was at stake. Before Carter could speak, another alarm sounded. This one was different, louder, more urgent. The lights in the room flickered. Carter felt something strange, like a pressure against his mind, trying to push thoughts into his consciousness. The device is activating, Morgan said, staring at her instruments. It is broadcasting at full power. Carter felt it then, a psychic broadcast flooding through the station. Images poured into his mind against his will. He saw Lieutenant Kate Phillips move through the corridors of Sentinel-7 with her security team, checking each section for crew members who remained unaffected. The station felt like a ghost ship now. Entire sections stood empty, abandoned by people who had walked calmly toward the docking bay to join the converted. The silence was worse than any alarm. Phillips tried not to think about how close she had come to joining them. When she stood in front of the threshold engine, staring at its impossible geometry, she had felt its pull. For a moment, she wanted nothing more than to reach out and touch it, to accept what it offered. Only Commander Carter's shouted order had broken through the fog in her mind. Now she had a mission. Find every person who still had their free will and get them to safety. So far, they had located 43 people scattered across the station. Not many, considering the station normally housed 200 crew members. The rest had already been converted or were hiding somewhere Phillips could not reach them. Her communicator buzzed. Phillips here. Kate, this is Morgan. I need you to come to engineering deck. We have a problem. The scientist's voice sounded strained. On my way, Phillips replied. She turned to her team. Continue the search. Get everyone to the escape pods and prepare for evacuation. I will meet you there. When Phillips reached engineering, she found Dr. Morgan working frantically at a console. Chief Engineer Howard stood nearby, his face grim as he assembled something that looked like a weapon but far more complex than anything Phillips had seen before. What is the problem? Phillips asked. Morgan pointed at her displays. The device has integrated itself into the Wanderer's systems. It is not just sitting in the cargo bay anymore. It has grown, spreading through the ship like a living organism, and it is connected to our station's power grid. Can we cut the power? Phillips asked. We tried. The device regenerates any damage instantly. It exists partially outside normal space. Physical attacks do not work on it. Morgan looked exhausted and frightened. Kate, this thing is growing stronger every minute. At this rate, it will have enough power to broadcast its influence across light years. It could convert entire planets. Phillips felt cold fear settle in her stomach. Then what do we do? Howard stepped forward, holding the strange weapon he had been assembling. This is a quantum disruptor. It creates localized reality failures. If we can time it correctly with the device's dimensional shifts, we might be able to sever its connection to whatever controls it. Might? Phillips repeated. The weapon has never been tested, Howard admitted. It could work perfectly, or it could tear a hole in space-time that swallows the entire station. There are no guarantees. Phillips looked at the quantum disruptor. It was their only chance. What do you need from me? We need to get close to the device, Morgan said. Close enough to ensure the disruptor hits at the right moment. That means going back onto the Wanderer. The converted crew will try to stop us, Phillips said. I know, Morgan replied, but we have no choice. If we do not destroy that device now, humanity dies. Simple as that. Before Phillips could respond, alarms screamed throughout the station. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. Phillips grabbed her communicator. Phillips to command center. What is happening? Commander Carter's voice came through tight with tension. The converted are making their move. They are trying to breach the sealed sections. They want access to the rest of the station. How many? Phillips asked. Over 100. They are organized, working together like a hive mind. Kate, we cannot hold them off for long. If you are going to do something, it needs to be now. Phillips made her decision. Howard, Morgan, come with me. We are going to end this. She activated her team channel. All security personnel fall back to defensive positions. Protect the escape pods. Do not let anyone through. The three of them moved quickly through the corridors toward the sealed docking bay. They could hear sounds of fighting in the distance as security teams tried to hold back the converted crew. Phillips tried not to think about the fact that they were fighting their own people, friends and colleagues whose minds had been stolen. When they reached the docking bay, Phillips used her override codes to open the sealed blast door. It slid open slowly, revealing the Wanderer beyond. The ship sat quiet and dark, but Phillips could feel something emanating from it. A presence, a consciousness that was aware of them and waiting. Stay close, Phillips said. Do not look directly at the device if you can help it. And if you start feeling strange, if you start hearing voices or seeing things, tell me immediately. They entered the Wanderer through the still-connected airlock. The ship's interior had changed since Phillips last saw it. Organic-looking growths covered the walls, pulsing with faint light. The air felt thick and strange, as if they were breathing something other than normal atmosphere. The device was transforming the ship into something alien. As they moved deeper into the ship, converted crew members appeared in the corridors. They did not attack. They simply stood there watching with those peaceful expressions blocking the path forward. Phillips raised her weapon, but she knew she could not bring herself to shoot. These were still human beings, even if their minds were no longer their own. "Please step aside," Phillips said, her voice firm. "We do not want to hurt anyone." One of the converted, a woman Phillips recognized as a medical officer named Sarah Grant, spoke in that same dreamy tone they all used. "You cannot hurt us, Lieutenant. We are beyond pain now, beyond fear. Why do you resist? The architects offer so much: peace, unity, eternal existence. Why do you choose suffering and death instead?" "Because we choose to remain human," Morgan said from behind Phillips. "Because free will matters more than comfort. Because we would rather die as ourselves than live as slaves to something we cannot understand." The converted smiled sadly, as if pitying them. Then they stepped aside, clearing the path. Phillips felt her stomach drop. They were not being stopped because the device was confident. It did not fear them. It knew they could not win. They reached the cargo bay. The door was open, and beyond it Phillips could see the threshold engine. It had grown massively since her last visit. What had been a geometric object the size of a car was now a sprawling structure that filled half the cargo bay. Tendrils of impossible material reached out in all directions, connecting to the ship's systems, pulsing with energy that made Phillips's eyes hurt to look at directly. Captain Sullivan stood in front of the device, his arms spread wide as if in worship. He turned when they entered, and Phillips saw that his eyes had changed. They reflected light in ways human eyes should not, showing depths that extended beyond physical space. "Alex," Sullivan said, though Carter was not with them. He seemed to be speaking to someone who was not there. "You have come at last. I knew you would. You always were stubborn." His head tilted as if listening to something. "Ah, you sent others instead. Wise. You know I would have a hard time hurting my old friend." "Jake," Howard said, stepping forward. "If any part of you is still in there, still human, I need you to listen to me. Remember what we talked about before you left on that mission. Remember our backup plan." For just a moment, something flickered across Sullivan's face. Confusion. Pain. A hint of the man he used to be fighting against the thing he had become. He clutched his head, and when he spoke, his voice was different, desperate, and afraid. Ben, please. You have to destroy it. Destroy me if you have to. Do not let it spread, please." Then the moment passed. Sullivan straightened, his face becoming calm again. But something had changed. He reached up to the back of his head, his fingers finding something embedded in his skull. With a scream of pure agony and determination, he tore it free. Blood poured down his neck as he held up a small piece of technology, a neural interface that had been controlling him. "Do it now," Sullivan gasped, falling to his knees. "While I am free. Before they take control again." The threshold engine screamed. It was not a sound but a psychic assault that hit everyone in the cargo bay like a physical blow. Phillips felt her mind being invaded, filled with visions of horror. She saw the true nature of the architects, vast predatory entities that fed on consciousness itself. She saw thousands of species that had been converted before humanity, all of them consumed and digested to fuel the architects' endless expansion. Morgan was setting up the quantum disruptor, her hands shaking as she worked. "I need 2 more minutes to calibrate," she shouted over the psychic noise. "We do not have 2 minutes," Phillips said. The device was reaching out with its tendrils, moving toward them with terrible purpose. The converted crew members were returning, no longer peaceful but moving with predatory intent. The device had decided they were a threat that needed to be eliminated. Howard grabbed his weapon and moved to defend Morgan. "Keep working. I will hold them off." Phillips joined him, raising her own weapon. The converted rushed forward, and Phillips did what she had to do. She fired, not to kill but to disable. Stunning blasts hit the converted crew, dropping them without permanent harm. But more kept coming, wave after wave of them pouring into the cargo bay. Sullivan crawled across the floor, leaving a trail of blood behind him. He reached the device and grabbed onto it with both hands. His body... The explosion had torn a massive hole in Sentinel-7. Emergency bulkheads sealed off the damaged sections automatically, but the station was badly hurt. Commander Alex Carter stood in what remained of the command center, watching damage reports flow across broken displays. 57 crew members dead in the explosion, another 34 missing, probably blown into space when the Wanderer exploded. Over half the station was now exposed to vacuum, but they were alive. And, more importantly, they were free. Lieutenant Phillips stumbled into the command center, her face covered in soot and blood. Behind her came Dr. Morgan and Chief Engineer Howard, both looking equally battered. Carter felt relief flood through him when he saw them. He had not known if they survived. "Report," Carter said, keeping his voice professional despite the emotion he felt. "The device is destroyed," Morgan said. She swayed on her feet and Carter quickly moved to support her. The quantum disruptor worked. It severed the device's connection to the architects and triggered a dimensional collapse. The device imploded, taking the Wanderer with it. "And the converted crew?" Carter asked. Phillips shook her head. "Most of them were on the Wanderer when it exploded. But the crew members who remained on the station are recovering. The device's influence is fading. They are confused and traumatized, but they seem to be themselves again." Carter felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Not all of it. Not with so many dead, but enough to let him breathe again. "What about Captain Sullivan?" Howard's face was grim. "Jake destroyed the neural interface that was controlling him. In his final moments, he was himself again. He helped us destroy the device. He saved us all." Carter nodded slowly, feeling grief mixed with pride. His friend had fought back against impossible odds and won, even though it cost him everything. "We will remember him. We will remember all of them." An alarm sounded, different from the emergency klaxons. This one was a communication signal. Carter moved to the console and accepted the incoming transmission. A holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Helen Brooks, the head of Coalition Deep Space Command. "Commander Carter," Brooks said, her voice cold and angry, "explain why you just destroyed an alien artifact worth more than every ship in the Coalition fleet combined. Explain why you disobeyed direct orders to preserve and study the device. Explain why over 100 people are dead." Carter met her gaze steadily. "Admiral, that device was not a gift. It was a weapon designed to convert humanity into something else, something that would serve beings we cannot understand or fight. I made the only choice that would preserve human free will." "That was not your decision to make," Brooks snapped. "You are relieved of command, effective immediately. A tribunal will be convened to determine charges. You will remain confined to your quarters until—" Morgan stepped forward, interrupting the Admiral. "With respect, Admiral, you do not understand what we faced. I have data from the device, recordings of what it showed us. The architects are predators. They have consumed thousands of species across millions of years. We were next on their menu. Commander Carter saved humanity." Brooks paused, her expression softening slightly. "Send me everything you have. All sensor data, all recordings, all analysis. And Commander Carter, you are still relieved of command, but the tribunal will wait until we review the evidence." Brooks out, the transmission ended. Carter sat down heavily, suddenly feeling exhausted beyond measure. Phillips put a hand on his shoulder. "We did the right thing, sir." "I know," Carter said quietly. "But that does not make it easier." Over the next several hours, they worked to stabilize the station. Emergency repairs sealed the worst breaches. Medical teams treated the injured and recovered what bodies they could from the wreckage. Engineers assessed the damage and determined that while Sentinel-7 was badly hurt, it could be saved with proper repairs. Carter spent time talking with the crew members who had been converted. They remembered everything that happened while under the device's control. They described it as being trapped inside their own minds, watching helplessly as something else used their bodies like puppets. Many were crying, traumatized by the experience of losing their free will. One of them, the young engineer Danny Price, looked at Carter with haunted eyes. "Commander, I tried to resist. I really did. But the things it showed me, the promises it made, they were so beautiful. I wanted to believe. I wanted to surrender. If you had not stopped it when you did, I think I would have given up completely. We all would have." "You are not to blame," Carter told him firmly. "None of you are. You faced something that was designed to override human will. The fact that any of you resisted at all shows incredible strength." Meanwhile, Morgan was working frantically in her laboratory. She had managed to save critical data in the final moments before the device was destroyed. Her analysis showed patterns that terrified her. The device had been transmitting constantly, sending signals across vast distances. The architects knew what happened here. They knew humanity had rejected their gift and destroyed it. More worrying was what Morgan found in the device's quantum signature. The architects were not alone. There was evidence of other dimensional entities, some fighting against the architects, some working with them. Humanity had just inserted itself into a conflict that spanned realities and had been going on for longer than human civilization existed. Morgan brought her findings to Carter in his quarters. He was supposed to be confined, but security was not enforcing it too strictly. Everyone on the station knew Carter had saved them. "Alex, you need to see this," Morgan said, spreading data across his desk display. The device was not just connected to the architects. It was part of a network. There are more of them out there. Hundreds, maybe thousands, all of them spread across the galaxy waiting to be found. Carter felt his blood run cold. "You are saying this was not an isolated incident?" "No," Morgan confirmed. "The architects have been seeding these devices across multiple galaxies for millions of years. They are patient hunters. They leave their traps and wait for species to develop enough technology to find them. Then they convert those species and use them to spread even more devices." "But we destroyed this one," Carter said. "We proved it can be done." "Yes," Morgan agreed. "And that is what worries me. We just announced to the entire dimensional ecosystem that humanity is different. We do not fall for their tricks. We fight back. That makes us either very interesting or very dangerous to them." "What are you saying?" Carter asked, though he already knew the answer. "I am saying they will be back," Morgan said quietly. "Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually. And next time, they will be prepared for resistance." Carter stood and walked to the window. Through the damaged hull sections, he could see stars burning in the darkness. Out there somewhere, the architects waited. Ancient beings that had consumed countless civilizations, and now they knew about humanity. "Then we prepare," Carter said firmly. "We warn every colony, every outpost, every ship. We develop better defenses. We learn everything we can about dimensional threats. And if they come back, we will be ready." A week later, Admiral Brooks returned to Sentinel-7 in person. She brought with her a team of scientists, military advisors, and coalition leadership. They spent days reviewing the data, interviewing crew members, and examining what remained of the Wanderer. Finally, Brooks called Carter to a formal hearing. He expected charges, maybe imprisonment. Instead, she stood when he entered the room and gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Commander. We need to talk." Carter sat cautiously. Brooks studied him for a long moment, then spoke. "The tribunal has reviewed all evidence. We have concluded that your actions, while technically insubordinate, were necessary and justified. You faced an unprecedented threat with limited information and made the correct decision. The charges are dismissed." Carter felt relief, but he sensed there was more. "And?" he prompted. Brooks smiled slightly. "And you are being promoted to Admiral. The Coalition is creating a new division, Deep Space Defense. Your job will be to prepare humanity for threats like this. Build defenses, develop detection systems, train personnel. Make sure we are never caught unprepared again." "I accept," Carter said without hesitation. "Good," Brooks said. "You will have full authority to recruit personnel and requisition resources. Lieutenant Phillips is being promoted to commander and will be your second in command. Chief Howard will lead research and development. Dr. Morgan will head scientific analysis." Carter nodded, already thinking about what needed to be done. "We will need sensor networks across human space, quantum detectors to identify dimensional anomalies, fast response teams trained to deal with contamination scenarios, research into defensive technologies. Whatever you need," Brooks said. "This is the Coalition's top priority now. We almost lost everything because we did not understand what we were facing. That will not happen again." After the meeting, Carter returned to the observation deck. He stood alone, looking out at the stars. So much had changed in such a short time. Jake was dead. Sentinel-7 was damaged. Over 100 people had lost their lives. But humanity survived, and more than that, they had learned. They now knew they were not alone in the universe, and that some of their neighbors were hostile beyond imagination. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the Threshold engine. Sentinel-7 had been partially rebuilt, though the scars of battle remained visible in its damaged sections. But the station was no longer just a research outpost. It had become the headquarters of deep space defense, humanity's first line of protection against threats from beyond normal space. Admiral Alex Carter stood in his new office, looking at displays that showed the entire network of human colonies and outposts. Red dots marked locations where quantum sensors had been installed, creating an early warning system that covered most of settled space. Green dots showed response teams, specially trained units equipped with technology based on what they learned from the Threshold engine. It was not perfect. There were gaps in coverage, areas where the sensors could not reach, but it was a start. Humanity was no longer blind to dimensional threats. Commander Kate Phillips entered the office carrying a data pad. "Admiral, we have another anomaly report. Colony 7 detected a quantum fluctuation matching the signature we are watching for. But it disappeared after 3 seconds." Carter frowned. "That is the 4th one this month. They are testing our defenses, seeing how we respond." "Agreed," Phillips said. "But the good news is our sensors are working. We are detecting them before they can establish a foothold. Each time they probe our defenses, we learn more about their methods." Dr. Lisa Morgan rushed into the office, her face excited. "Alex, Kate, you need to see this. We finally broke through the encryption on the last data transmission we recovered from the Threshold engine. You are not going to believe what we found." She pulled up a holographic display showing complex patterns of quantum entanglement. The device was not just connected to the architects. It was connected to something else, something that was fighting against them. Carter leaned forward, studying the patterns. "What are you saying?" "I am saying there is a war happening in the spaces between dimensions. The architects are not the only players. There are other entities, some trying to stop them. When we destroyed the device, we did not just hurt the architects. We sent a message to everyone watching. We announced that humanity is not willing to be prey." Phillips looked worried. "Is that good or bad?" "Both," Morgan admitted. "It means we have enemies who want to convert us. But it also means we might have potential allies, beings who see the architects as threats and might be willing to help us fight them." Carter nodded slowly. "That changes things. We need to find a way to communicate with these other entities, learn who they are, what they want, whether they can be trusted." "I have been working on that," Morgan said. "The quantum sensors are not just detecting threats. They are also capable of sending messages. We could try broadcasting on the frequencies we detected in the device's network. See who responds." "Do it," Carter ordered. "But carefully. We do not want to attract unwanted attention." Chief Engineer Ben Howard joined them, wiping grease from his hands. He had been working non-stop for months, developing new defensive technologies. "I have something to show you. Come to the testing range." They followed Howard to a sealed chamber deep in the station. Inside, mounted on a testing platform, was a weapon unlike anything Carter had seen before. It looked organic and mechanical at the same time, its structure shifting slightly as if alive. "This is a prototype neural dampener," Howard explained. "It generates a field that blocks psychic influence. We tested it on volunteers who were exposed to the Threshold engine. The dampener completely prevented the device's control from taking hold." "How does it work?" Carter asked. "It creates quantum interference in the neural pathways that dimensional entities use to influence organic minds. Think of it as white noise for psychic broadcasts. The downside is that it causes headaches and nausea when active, but it is effective." "Start mass production," Carter ordered. "Every ship, every station, every colony gets these. If the architects return, we will be ready." Over the following weeks, humanity continued to prepare. The story of what happened at Sentinel-7 spread across all human colonies. At first, Coalition Command tried to keep it classified, but Carter insisted the truth be shared. People had a right to know what was out there, what threatened them. The response was mixed. Some people panicked, demanding humanity retreat to Earth and abandon space exploration. Others grew angry, wanting to hunt down every architect device and destroy them. But most people simply accepted the truth and supported the defense initiatives. Humanity had always been survivors. This was just another challenge to overcome. Carter was preparing a coalition-wide broadcast, his first public address since the incident. He stood in the communications center reviewing his speech while technicians prepared the broadcast equipment. The message would reach every human settlement, from the inner colonies to the farthest outposts. Phillips approached him. "You ready for this?" she asked. "No," Carter admitted. "How do you tell billions of people that the universe is more dangerous than they imagined? That there are threats we barely understand? You tell them the truth," Phillips said. "That is all you can do. Tell them what we faced and how we survived. Tell them we are not helpless." The broadcast began. Carter stood before the camera, his uniform crisp and clean, his expression serious but not frightened. He took a breath and began to speak. "People of the Coalition, I am Admiral Alex Carter. 3 months ago, something happened that changed everything we thought we knew about the universe. A ship that vanished 15 years ago returned, carrying with it a device that nearly destroyed us all." Carter described what happened, leaving out no details. He talked about the Threshold engine, The architects, the conversion of crew members, and the desperate fight to destroy the device. He spoke about Captain Jake Sullivan's sacrifice and the losses they suffered. He did not sugarcoat the danger or minimize the threat. We learned something important, Carter continued. We learned that there are ancient beings in the universe that see humanity as prey. They have consumed thousands of species before us. They left traps across the galaxy, waiting for civilizations to find them and fall into their control. He paused, letting that sink in. But we also learned that we can fight back. When offered transcendence, we said no. When they tried to take our free will, we resisted. When they thought we would surrender like every species before us, we proved them wrong. Carter's voice grew stronger, more passionate. Humanity is young compared to these ancient powers. We are small. We are limited. But we have something they do not understand. We have the ability to choose, the courage to sacrifice, the stubbornness to remain ourselves no matter what price we must pay. The architects thought we would be easy prey. They were wrong. And now they know that humanity will not go quietly. We will not accept their gifts. We will not surrender our freedom. If they want us, they will have to fight for every single human life. Carter looked directly into the camera. We are building defenses. We are developing weapons. We are preparing for the day they return because they will return. Ancient predators do not give up easily, but when they come back, they will find us ready. They will find us armed. They will find us united. To everyone watching this, I want you to know that you are not helpless. You can help. Support the defense initiatives. Join the response teams. Spread the word about what we face. Stay alert. And most importantly, never forget what makes us human. Never forget that our free will is worth fighting for. He took a breath. We did not ask for this war. We did not seek out these enemies. But now that we know they exist, we will face them. Not with fear, but with courage. Not with surrender, but with defiance. Not as victims, but as survivors. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and countless other disasters. We have faced extinction before and persevered. This is just another challenge, and like every challenge before it, we will overcome it. Together. Carter saluted the camera. Stay strong. Stay human. And remember that every one of us has the power to make a difference. Carter out. The broadcast ended. Carter stood in silence, wondering how people would react. Within minutes, responses began flooding in. Messages of support from across human space. Volunteers signing up for defense training. Donations to research programs. People refusing to be afraid. Philip showed him some of the messages. Look at this. A 12-year-old girl on Mars sent a drawing of humans fighting monsters. She wrote that she wants to be a defender when she grows up. There are thousands of messages like this. Carter felt hope growing in his chest. Humanity was responding not with panic, but with determination. They were scared, yes, but they were also angry, and they were ready to fight. Later that evening, Carter stood alone in the observation deck. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue and white sphere hanging in the darkness. Billions of people lived on that planet, most of them going about their daily lives unaware of how close they came to losing everything. Morgan joined him. Thinking about what comes next? She asked. Always, Carter replied. The architects are still out there. They know about us now. They know we destroyed their device and freed their victims. They will come back. The question is when. And we will be ready, Morgan said confidently. Every day we get stronger. Every day we learn more. They may have millions of years of